Hello and welcome to the Fawley site on behalf of ExxonMobil and our contractor companies. You'll remember from your site induction that there are many key rules and pieces of information that you need to know to work safely on the site at Fawley. For example, the Fawley life-saving rules, the wearing of the correct PPE for each area of the site, general evacuation and emergency procedures, and the LPS system of behavioural safety that all site personnel use to keep them safe. The site at Fawley comprises a refinery and chemical complex which together produce a vast range of lubricants, fuels and also specialty chemical products like rubber and solvents. In order to produce these range of diverse products, the site uses many different feedstocks and processes. This means that there are many different process areas, or units, that are manufacturing products at the site. Each process unit has its own hazards, and although they are safely operated and the Fawley site has very few incidents, it's important that you know the hazards on each unit that you work on, in order that you carry out your work safely and in the unlikely event of an emergency. For example, likely hazards can include toxic or flammable fluids, high pressure systems, hot or very cold surfaces, corrosive acids or alkalis, working in an area that involves upgrading of PPE, such as double hearing protection or even wearing a life jacket when working over water. You can see that to have one induction to cover all the areas would be too long and detailed to understand. We've therefore developed specific shorter induction films for each of the units that you would be expected to work on. These inductions are very important as they contain information specific to the area that you'll be working in, including the hazards and also emergency procedures and evacuation routes that you'll require in the event of an emergency. As you did with the site induction, please give this short film your best attention, and please ask either your supervisor or ExxonMobil contact if you require any more assistance or clarification. Everybody working on units must have both a site induction and a block-specific induction. We need to ensure that everybody working at Fawley has the right information to ensure that nobody gets hurt. Welcome to the distillation process unit at Fawley Refinery. Distillation is spread over 4 separate blocks and comprise the following operating units. Block 4, PS3, NS and NF and the GZ area. Block 5, PS1, PV1 and the GGC2 area. Block 7, PV3 and HD5, 6 and 7, and Block 9, Scanfinder. The function of each of these units and the processes used to produce our hydrocarbon products are all slightly different, despite them all being part of the distillation complex. Therefore, the hazards you may encounter on our various units will differ too. So it's important that you are constantly aware of all hazards, of where you are working, and fully understand the emergency procedures and facilities around you. It's the expectation of the distillation business team that you carry your Fawley site induction book, the White Book, at all times in order to familiarise yourself with the sound of any block emergency gas alarms and when they're tested. The book also identifies the locations of the block emergency evacuation assembly points, the plant emergency telephones, the red line chemical areas and the safety showers. Before working or visiting the distillation complex, you must contact the appropriate area operator via radio or telephone to gain permission to enter the working unit. The distillation plant communications operate on radio channel 6, and a board displaying the names of the area operators and their call signs is located in the permit room. A radio tuned to channel 6 is located in the permit room for you to contact the area operator directly for permission to enter the unit or with any issues or questions you may have. You must sign in to the relevant unit using the specific signing in book for that block and try to be as specific as possible in your description to the location where you'll be working. This applies whether you're working on the block all day or briefly dropping off materials onto the plant. Please remember, when leaving the block at any time, always sign out of the area. It is our expectation that anyone working on and around our furnaces is required to carry a radio tuned to the distillation channel 6. You must call the relevant panel operator in the CCR whenever going onto or leaving the furnace. This enables the panel man to warn of any issues relating to the furnace should they arise. To reiterate, It's important that you give us as much information as possible about where you are working, because in the event of an emergency, we may need to search for you. If the plant gas alarm does sound, always remember to move across wind to the nearest assembly point, avoiding any furnaces en route, and await instructions. However, please be aware that in an alarm condition, the nearest assembly point is not always necessarily the safest, so please consider the wind direction and any localized hazards. The block alarm sounds. Block 4, which comprises PS3, NS and NF and the GZ area, has a single tone horn sound and is tested on Wednesdays at 4:30 p.m. Block 5, which comprises PS1, PV1 and the GGC2 area, has a two-tone warble sound and is also tested on Wednesdays at 4:30 p.m. Block 7, which comprises PV3 and the HD5, 6 and 7 area, has a two-tone rapid warble sound and is tested on Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Block 9, which comprises our Scanfire unit, has an electronic sweeping siren sound, a bit like an old-fashioned air raid siren, and is tested on Fridays at 4:15 p.m. The main evacuation assembly points are identified by a green sign containing a white tick and are located as follows. Block 9, D Avenue near Tank 455, and Block 9 car park. Block 5, C Avenue outside Old Canteen building by Block 3, and B Avenue opposite CCR 1. Block 4, B Avenue car park outside Permit Control, and Block 7, A Avenue adjacent to Substation 32. Please remember your evacuation route from any block should always be a crosswind. You can check which direction the wind is blowing by looking at the windsocks located on the tops of structures or by noting which direction any steam plumes are blowing. And you should remain at the assembly point until accounted for by the process organisation. You must get permission to bring any vehicles into distillation. It's important we minimise the number of vehicles on the units as they can be a potential source of ignition, and incidents have occurred where equipment has been damaged. Any vehicle permitted to enter the units upon reaching their destination must stop and switch off the engine and unload any equipment. Then once all equipment has been offloaded, the vehicle must leave the unit and be parked in the correct parking area, unless permission to park with a valid pass has been issued and approved. In the event that the evacuation alarm is sounded whilst you're driving on our unit, you must stop immediately and switch off the engine. All personnel must evacuate the unit by foot to the nearest assembly point across wind and await further instructions from an authorised distillation process person. Please remember to consider that walking is working. All around the distillation area we have many different ground surface conditions, ranging from concrete paving to gravel and shingle, and also a great deal of uneven ground. When you walk around our units, you must choose the safest route, and please do not rush so as to avoid any slips, trips or falls. Many of our distillation streams contain high concentrations of H2S. This equipment will be identified by certain valves or pipework being defined with blue paint. Our flare lines, for example, can contain up to 20,000 parts per million and are painted a solid blue. H2S at this high concentration is fatal if inhaled, so it's the site expectation that you wear a personal H2S monitor and carry an H2S escape respirator for your protection at all times. Please take note of any blue H2S pipework adjacent to where you're working and always consider your escape route to a safe location should you need to evacuate. Certain distillation units contain corrosive products and chemicals such as caustics and sulfuric acid. Remember, areas where corrosive chemicals are present will be defined with a red line painted on the floor around the equipment. The site standard requirements is for you to upgrade your PPE to goggles and rubber gauntlets whilst working or even walking through these areas. Due to the nature of our operation here in distillation, there's a great deal of equipment and pipework that have very hot surfaces, and some process streams can reach temperatures of over 420 degrees Celsius. It's essential that you consider this hazard and take mitigation when working next to hot pipework and vessels. All of our units are of an age where they contain asbestos for pipework insulation or in jointing gaskets. Asbestos is identified in red paint on the pipework where it has been classified, but not necessarily everywhere. If you think you have found or disturbed asbestos, please stop all work and report it immediately to process for investigation. A great deal of our equipment on Distillation is located on elevated structures, so your utmost care and mitigation should be in place when working at height. Remember that all tools should be tied off, materials stored safely in boxes or bags, and all areas below overhead work must be barriered off and tagged. Remember, your dropped object could cause someone a serious injury. As a reminder, mobile telephones and all portable electric equipment are not permitted to be used in any operating area unless they are of the approved, intrinsically safe ExxonMobil type, and permission must be sought from the area operator if you would like to use a camera on one of our units. Remember, all the details for the units are contained inside your white induction book. The information provided is critical to you and your colleagues' safety. Have the right information at the right time, rather than having no information at the wrong time. Also, when you're working on our units, please at all times always use good housekeeping philosophy, use waste bins and skips provided. Never deviate from your permit conditions without getting the permit reauthorized. Don't forget, a permit to work is required for any activity and should be read and understood by all involved, as it will contain additional safety information relevant to that task at that time. Also remember, our units are working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Please do not block access or egress to any equipment or roadway. We would also ask that if you see an unsafe act or process situation, please report it immediately so that it can be investigated at the earliest opportunity. Pet phones are located across the blocks. Dial 9 in an emergency. Even if it's a false alarm or condition, we'd rather investigate the potential situation than not know. Your observation could be critical. Please remember, our goal is always nobody gets hurt. We mean it, and with your safe work on our unit, together we can achieve this. Finally, if there's anything in this presentation that you aren't clear of, please talk to your supervisor or a member of the process team. Thank you for listening and have a safe day.